Welcome everyone to the THSADA UIL Legislative Council recap. My name is Pat Cohan. Today we have the pleasure of bringing in Ray ZEPEDA from the UIL to give us the recap on this week's Legislative Council. And then we're going to bring in Jennifer Frazier, the Athletic Director at McKinney ISD, and the Region 3 Director, as well as Mike Bass from Alvin ISD, the Region 5 Director, to give us some insights on how they are moving forward with the information presented at Legislative Council and overall how to dissect all the decisions that were made, not only in athletics, but also in policy and some of the other forums. Before we get going, we do want to thank everybody who's taking part in the Texas Way. That is a big initiative from the UIL, the Texas coaches, and THSADA. The amount of feedback that we've seen at Fall Forum and the positive reactions from the communities has been outstanding, and we just want to keep encouraging people to keep that moving forward, right? The launch has been really exciting, but let's keep the momentum through basketball. Ray shared a really interesting stat during Fall Forum that over 44% of all of our ejections happen in the sport of basketball. So what are we doing to make sure that the Texas Way's message is getting out into the winter seasons as well? A couple of housekeeping items. Yes, please use the chat. You can ask questions. We will take those as a respond later. So it's not going to be something we're going to pull from in this conversation, but we are going to record this and we are going to take those questions in so that we can respond later if needed. Now that we're all set, I'm going to hand it over to Ray ZEPEDA to give his Legislative Council recap.
First of all, I want to say welcome to everybody today. I don't know that there's going to be anything that's going to be groundbreaking today, especially if you attended Fall Forum. This might be a recap of some of the things that we discussed in greater detail at Fall Forum, but there have been some slight changes to a couple of the proposals from what I reviewed last week, and super excited to be here with you today and to kind of review some of what was decided and passed through council. Think it was a very consequential council meeting for a variety of reasons. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're gonna get this deal kicked off, and hopefully we're going to do this right. Okay. All right. So just giving you an update, I think just at the start, I'm going to start with the athletics agenda and kind of what went through our committee agenda and talk about two different things that we gave a report to the athletics committee on. One was the basketball shot clock. They had asked us in June to come back to them with a recommendation as far as to when a superintendent survey might be. And so we will be conducting a superintendent survey on whether our superintendents are going to be supportive of the implementation of a shot clock right post spring break, which I think comes at a really, really good time. It's after the state basketball tournament. People are still engaged with basketball, but yet it also gives an idea on where schools might be regarding funding. Implementing the shot clock really takes more than just installing a shot clock. There is recurring costs game over game with a game worker and also officials to possibly training that needs to be taken. And so again, if you feel strongly about implementation of a basketball shot clock, I would suggest that you need to have some conversations with your superintendent and just realize that there will be a survey probably coming out right after spring break. Second thing that we gave a report on is we gave an update on our MAC, which is our Medical Advisory Committee. Medical Advisory Committee met in September, early September. And first of all, they were very appreciative of all of the efforts that were made as far as to keeping kids safe through another historically hot season. And you guys implementing the recommendations that we have put out regarding heat safety. They did decide that there was probably a lot of meat left on that bone as far as our heat season was concerned, and that has been absolutely right this week as we've had record-breaking heat. And they did decide that the heat subcommittee would convene later this semester, this fall semester, to kind of look at it its entirety and to make some recommendations for how we're going to be moving forward with the heat and with our approach to heat. Two things I want to point out to athletic directors that would be on this as well is that they also discussed the importance of athletic directors reporting consistently when AEDs are used, either with students, with staff members, or even spectators. If you have to engage an AED in response to an emergency situation, that is required that you report that, and you can do that through the portal. And then beyond that, same thing with a catastrophic injury. If you have a head and neck injury, serious head and neck injury, and I'm not talking about a concussion, I'm talking about a serious head and neck injury, more than a concussion, you do need to report those injuries. And then finally, they did approve our forms, required forms for the 25-26 school year, and we aim to release that to you guys so that you can start preparing as we hit December. So we gave those two reports, and let's talk about specific action that was taken. First thing that was passed was an amendment to Section 1204, which reduced the required time for officials to report incidents from 48 hours to 24 hours. We think that's going to be a good thing, not only for us, but for our officials as well. I think it's going to be a good thing for you. Sometimes you don't know everything that might have occurred at a contest, and reducing that reporting time, we think is going to be very helpful for us and for you to get ahead of some situations. So moving forward, immediately, the required time has been reduced from 48 to 24 hours. Most consequentially, I think for you, and I want to point this out, is that there was some great action, some proactive action taken in regard to the TABC Summer Showcase. This will be going into effect, if passed by the Commissioner of Education, on January 1st of 2025. And I think the most important thing that you would be interested in is that moving forward, school districts will be able to allow for use of school district resources in support of their teams participating in this sanctioned event. So we have removed the pilot program status, and as such, you can now use school district resources as you see fit. Doesn't mean you have to, but it means you can. What are school district resources? That could be practice uniforms, game uniforms, basketballs. It could even involve transportation. Any type of resource that you would want to use in support of your kids and your coaches regarding their participation in this event, you're now going to be able to use. So that might be some conversations that you need to have internally. You might need to look at budgeting resources and talk to your basketball coaches about what that might look like for this next summer. Another thing that we hope is going to help is there has been some confusion at times when a student has not fully maybe unenrolled or informed school A that they're going to be leaving that school and going to school B and then participating at school B in the showcase. And so now moving forward, students have to have been enrolled prior to the end of the school year, or if they were not enrolled in their new school, they would need to have a PAPF submitted to the UIL prior to their participation in the summer showcase. And so I think that's an important distinction. We're going to be talking more about that as we get into the spring, but we think that might clear up some confusion about whose student it is and ensure that there is clear communication and transparency when it comes to this event. Finally, there was an amendment to Section 1205, and I think there was some confusion about this, and this is related to students who have been found to have changed schools for athletic purposes. Any student moving forward in the 25-26 school year that has been found to have moved and changed schools for athletic purposes by the DEC or by the SEC would no longer be able to participate in a contest against a varsity team, even if they are participating as a member of a sub-varsity team. So what does that mean? That's explained as, if I'm on the JV team, there are times when certain JVs will play varsities from either private schools, lower classifications, etc. And while my sub-varsity team could possibly play that varsity team, if I've been found to have moved for athletic purposes, I personally would not be able to participate in that contest. So these items were items that passed through the athletic committee. And again, when do they go into effect? The changing of the reporting time would be immediate after it's approved. The TABC Summer Showcase event, that would be, if approved by the Commissioner of Education, would go into effect on January of 2025. And the amending of Section 1205 would go into effect next school year. I think it's important to look at what actions were not taken. I think you can learn a lot about the direction of the UIL and where we might be going, especially when it comes to additional activities. The following were all actions that were rejected or no action was taken. There was a proposal to allow for mixed relays. You can see the different activities that were proposed. Again, I do want to state this we have a lot of kids participating in all four of those activities, outstanding activities in and of their own right. One of the messages that our council has asked us to put forth is that we do not sanction activities to grow participation. We sanction activities when the growth dictates that they need to be sanctioned. And so we've been trying to be good partners for advocates and people that are passionate about all of these sports. And all of them are at different levels of participation at the current time. The other thing that we said, and I think this is important for athletic directors to hear, if you believe that one of these activities or any other activity that we are not sanctioning at the moment should be considered, we need to hear from you because we hear from people that are passionate about these activities and sports. But we have not heard a lot of chatter from school districts, from superintendents, from athletic directors asking us to add additional activities. And we're a member-driven organization. I think if we're to add any activities, we're going to need to hear an outcry of you guys that this is needed to support activity that is already ongoing in your district. Finally, there was a lot of talk about guardian caps. It was decided again that this is more of a rule-making situation. Our medical advisory committee has really wanted to have additional time to look into this and have some conversation about guardian caps. And so we look forward to continuing to engage with our medical advisory committee regarding guardian caps, and we'll obviously update you guys if there might be changes for the 2025 football season. And then we had several proposals from the public, and you can see the last three here, that would either be concerned about different audio-visual effects, strobe lights at stadiums, smoke at stadiums, things of that nature, and the impact that they have on spectators. And we also had some folks weigh in quite on the other side of that thought that we need to be allowing more than we do. My one comment to that is I think the UIL and our athletic committee concurred with this, feel that local ISDs are best poised to make decisions that are in the best interest of their community when it comes to what does and does not happen at your stadiums and at your events. We would say, though, and suggest that you probably do need to be mindful of some of the impacts of some of these effects to spectators and think about how you warn them, how you communicate with your community, etc. Okay, I will call out Patrick a little bit, our host. Patrick yesterday said, hey, you said this was going to be a consequential meeting and session at the Legislative Council, and I watched the athletic session, and not much happened. And I kind of disagree a little bit with that. I think a lot happened. I just reviewed that with you. But I told him that I think more consequently for athletic directors and athletic participation were some proposals that came through the policy committee. So in closing, I'm going to run through those real quickly and review what I think the impact is for athletic directors, and then turn this back over to Patrick. Most consequentially, I think, was an amendment to Section 443, which indicates that moving forward, that all students would require a PAPF as far as page 1 completion, would need to have page 1 fully completed and on file prior to participation on any level of play. And so you guys know that previously the Constitution indicated that coaches had to have an approved PAPF for students to participate on the varsity level. Moving forward, if approved by the Commissioner of Education, this would become effective on 8/1 of 2025, and it would require that you need to have page 1 fully completed and in the system, in the portal, in order for that student to participate on the freshman level, on the JV level, on any level. And so it was felt like that this was very important. This comes from feedback of many athletic directors across the state that felt that this was needed to increase transparency and to allow everyone in the DEC to fully understand the amount of movement in and out of a campus. And so, again, think that this would be very consequential for possibly next school year. The next amendment was an amendment to Section 26, which was regarding SEC jurisdiction, regarding a large number of PAPFs. And it gives the SEC specific authority to investigate schools that might be receiving an inordinate or high number of PAPFs in a given year. Okay, well, there were some very good questions on social media about what is an inordinate amount of PAPFs. I think one of the things that we're trying to do is to harness the power of data and try to establish some norms and look at what does it look like? What is normal in class 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A? What does that look like across our classification system? And also, what does that look like by sport? So we're looking at that data right now, trying to establish some norms, and then going to utilize those norms to develop, again, some possible triggers that would require the asking of further questions. One of the things that I would indicate is that the asking of questions and the establishment of a process does not indicate the assumption of guilt in any way, shape, or form. I think what it allows is for, again, further transparency, and it's going to allow schools to really tell their story. It's going to allow schools to tell the story of, look, we serve, sometimes communities that have very high mobility rates, and it's going to be able to allow those programs to show the world, kind of that their program, probably their mobility rate mirrors what is naturally occurring in their community. Nothing wrong with that. I think that where there might need to be action is in the situation where the mobility in and out of a program is a little bit different than what is naturally occurring in their community. So we think that this is, again, going to aid in transparency. This does not come out of a vacuum. This comes out of a recommendation from several athletic directors in school districts and stakeholders. And again, if approved by the Commissioner of Education, this would become effective on 8/1 of 2025. Next proposal I want to review is an amendment to Section 27. Again, this is pretty consequential, which regards SEC involvement in DEC processes. And this would allow the SEC to possibly appoint an independent chair of a DEC if it is felt that the DEC in question is not acting in accordance with the UIL Constitution and contest rules. So we have heard loud and clear from our member schools concerns about DECs acting in a consistent manner, in a manner that is in close fidelity with the rules of the Constitution. And so with that being said, if it is found or thought that a DEC is not acting in accordance with the rules, that this would allow the SEC to appoint an independent chair. That is not that much unlike what TEA sometimes will do if they feel that things are not necessarily being done appropriately in a school district, and a school district might not be acting in accordance within their own rules, that they can appoint a monitor or even a board of managers, very similar to that process. And it would give the appointed chair the ability to refer cases directly to the SEC if they saw fit. Again, as with all of the other policy committee proposals, this would be effective of 8/1 of 2025 if it is approved by the Commissioner of Education. And then finally, the last proposal that passed through the policy committee that I think impacts athletic directors is a new requirement for next school year that would suggest that a DEC is going to have to approve a student that's applying for a foreign exchange waiver prior to that waiver coming into our office or the waiver office for consideration. I think that most of you guys know in the past that pretty much foreign exchange waivers came straight to us without any DEC really approval or review. This really just applies the same type of review to foreign exchange students that it does to students that are here. And again, what would be the things that the DEC would look at? They would look at whether this student has or the school district has a pattern or past history of obtaining maybe foreign exchange students in any one sport. And then they would look at the student and try to ascertain, just like we do for all students, if this student is changing schools for athletic purposes. Again, I think this could be very consequential, and this would be being effective next August. And so finally, just in closing, I tried to think about, like, as it strikes athletic directors and impacts you guys, what would be the things that I thought would be most consequential? Again, the things that you need to consider today. I think you need to start talking about the summer showcase and what you're going to allow as far as resourcing. And then all of the things that pass through policy, having a PAPF prior to participating at any level, the SEC possibly being able to ask some questions that you want asked. And then moving forward again, that the policy committee I will just say that these are beginning steps. These are not ending steps. These are the beginning steps that probably try to increase some transparency and allow us to gain a greater understanding of what is happening in our schools and then inform next steps. And so, again, excited about these changes and looking forward to hearing the perspective of Jennifer and Mike. And with that, Patrick, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Appreciate that, Ray. And Jennifer, I'd like to start with you. As somebody that was at the Legislative Council, can you give us an overall, maybe the vibe of the conversations and the questions that were had there? Are we moving forward, or are we trying to stop things from moving a different direction, a direction that most athletic directors in Texas do not want to see?
Absolutely. You're right. Correct. I was able to attend in person. And I think, the biggest piece for me is I just walked away, again, encouraged and energized. We really are blessed. And I know we talk about that a lot in Texas, but I think we take it for granted until you sit in there and you watch the process, and you just truly watch how the committees work. And then going before the bigger committee to make sure that everybody is, that we are well represented within our local districts. And I think just little key things as far as like the UIL working to get, the officiating reporting from 48 hours to 24 hours. That helps us tremendously as athletic directors. Just the little things like getting us the athletic forums in December. That's never happened before. Again, that just helps us plan. It helps us, just be able to make our jobs a little bit easier so that we can focus on the things that we need to focus on. And then just that they do listen to us. They listen to our concerns. I know, Mike is going to probably hone in a little bit more on the officials, so I don't want to steal that thunder. But I think even just with that piece, just helping us plan again with the officials, the payment structure and things like that. But I think especially within the policy, watching the policy committee, all the things that we listen to that are coming into action. I think what really is important for me that I really left there kind of just being convicted about, a lot of times in communication, we talk about that clear is kind. And I think what's really important is consistency is kind. And I think, as an athletic director, I think it's very important that we know what's going on within our districts. And then as DEC members, we really need to make sure that we are being consistent and that we are, taking the training seriously that the UIL has put before us, because these topics that they discussed within the policy committee are important things because they're not being done consistent. And so that's why it's really important, I think, for us to really take that serious and make sure that we are going back to our local districts and that we are doing everything we can to remain consistent to help the UIL so that they can continue to make the decisions that they need to make.
And I want to come back to a lot of those DEC, SEC proposals and what those will do in the future. But I do want to hear from Mike, who served as the THSADA's officials chair, who was a huge part of building the new payment structure, the 10-year payment plan for officials. Where are we at? Because during COVID, when we did a lot of these Zooms, that was a hot topic. Official shortage. Are high school athletics going to keep on going? Are we going to be playing football games on Wednesdays and weird times that we're not used to? Where are we at, and where do you see us moving forward with these new rules on the 24-hour rule and so on?
Pat, again, I want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity for Jennifer and I to be on this today with you and Ray. And it's exciting times here in the great state of Texas for athletics. And I was at the Legislative Council meeting also years ago. My mentor, Sandra House, said, you need to start going to these meetings. And so I've been going to these for several years. And it's exciting for me to see superintendents that truly are passionate about all, not only for athletics, but for music and policy and academics. I mean, they come up there and give their time. And we know that we have great leaders serving us. And so that's the great mark of leadership, is that they serve others. So exciting times for the great state of Texas with our state executive committee. But the great thing is that the good news to share is that our official numbers are up. At one point after COVID, we were over 47% shortage in officials across the great state of Texas. And folks, that's huge. And I was had an opportunity to visit with Mike Fitch, the THSADA, president of THSADA, and he said, Coach, we were back to pre-COVID numbers. I think he said 16 or 18,000 members now. And in football alone, they had over 6,000 members sign up this year for football and over 3,000 sign up for volleyball. So we're going in the right direction. And I think part of that reason is because the TASO and Texas High School Athletic Directors Association, THSCA, we've all band together to say, what can we do to increase our numbers? And so one of the first things we did, we worked on creating a pay scale plan for a 10-year pay plan for them. And that's exciting because that's one of the things the officials talked about, is not having the opportunity to know what they're going to be able to make and not giving them raises. So we have raises designated throughout the next 10 years. And the good thing about it, folks, the next raises, you need to start being prepared for the spring of 2026, because the fall of 2026 will be the first initial overall pay increase for officials. So we addressed that deal. The second thing was just a shortage of numbers. How can we go out and create more officials? And what we were able to do is that sports officiating course that's approved by TEA. And it's exciting to see the number of districts across the great state of Texas that have implemented it already or in the process of implementing it maybe in the next couple of years. And so that alone is driving the numbers up. And so we're going to send Jody Horman of the Texas High School Athletic Directors Association will send out an email on Thursday with a form on it to find out how many people are already offering this course, how many are planning to offer the course in the future. And then the other thing that has been driving a lot of our officials out is just the bad sportsmanship. And kudos to Ray Zapeta and the UIL, Joe Martin with Texas High School Coach Association, Mike Fitch with TASO. A lot of people don't realize, but TASO actually has their own version of the Texas Way. And they had over 2,000 officials already sign up for that as well. So it's exciting. But we brought in Steve Mackey. He worked with us. And what a great implementation of this initiative that's going to make a difference. It's already making a difference. Ray Zapeta and his staff send out weekly reports, maybe monthly reports on the number of ejections. And they're down this year. So we're excited about that part of as well, as far as what can we do to increase our numbers. And it's showing right now that we're doing the right thing. Last but not least, like Jennifer said, that the changing the 48 to 24 hours for ejection reporting is so important, not for football, because we only play once a week. But if you play on Thursday and then you got a game on Saturday or even Friday, let's say in your tournament or something, you can play a district game on Friday, having that 24-hour period of time for reporting, exactly what your situation in, because the worst thing could happen is to play a kid that was ejected, a student athlete that was ejected, and now all of a sudden you played them in a game when they weren't supposed to play. So I think that kudos to Ray and the support to be able to get that amendment through. And now we just got to make sure the director commissioner passes, approves it as well.
And what we're seeing, this was really good to kind of tee up all these rules on the DEC side of things, or the proposals. About 3 years ago, we laser focused, Texas athletic directors across the state laser focused in on officials and how to improve that situation. And it's interesting to see what that created. With all these proposals in the policy meetings, what do you see us focusing in on to try to make big change? What is that? It was really easy with the officials. We're trying to get more officials. How do you dissect all the different proposals that were put in? They all kind of lay into, all these policies really go after one topic. How do you dissect that, and where do you see the future movements in the next 6 to 12 months, so that in 2 years we're having a conversation like this and we're really proud of the result that we created? Either one of you could take that. Jennifer, if you have something, go for it.
Yeah, I would say I think what's most important is athletic directors, we need to walk away with legislative council with a to-do list. What are things that we can start doing immediately? I think the number one important thing that you heard Ray talk about is if you are already not doing PAPS on your freshman group, you need to be doing those. Don't wait until August 1st to start. Let's start with our spring sports. Let's start getting that done now. The whole purpose of doing that is, again, like what he talked about, is to capture data so that they can have, the foundation is laid to capture the data of PAPFs that are moving or that are coming into the different programs. So I would say first and foremost, let's walk out. Let's all commit to doing that right now. Let's start, emailing our coaches in the spring and start getting that done immediately. And then I would say I'm going to challenge myself as well too. We love to collect that data here in McKinney ISD. I think it's really important. I'm going to start collecting data just individually on my programs and just how many PAPFs are coming in each of the programs, and just so that I can be educated before. I think it's really important that we understand what's happening within the network of our own district before the UIL picks up the phone and calls and says, hey, FYI, we see a percentage of PAPS coming through. We need to know what's going on in our own school. So that's something that I'm going to do. And I think that will help us get, hopefully will help Ray and the UIL kind of, accomplish some of the tasks that they want to get done as far as tracking, moving for athletic purposes. And then finally, I would just say as a DEC chair, I am challenged again to make sure that I am going into all of our hearings, that I am taking everything serious and making sure that we are doing just a very thorough job. So again, that consistency matters, and just making sure, again, athletic directors have a system in place. If a coach is going to check the box on number 6, they should be calling you. They should be talking you through that, making sure that you understand what's happening, and just so that, again, there's a preparedness so that everybody can be successful at the local level all the way up to the UIL.
Mike, do you have anything to add to, how you're going to walk away from this legislative council and maybe change your day-to-day or focus in on specific parts of your day-to-day moving forward?
Pat, it's just like Jennifer stated earlier, that when these policies are being set forth and are being presented at the State Executive Committee, they're being presented because there's issues. And so I said, I think that's the first thing that we have to realize as the athletic director, there are issues across the great state of Texas. And the first thing you got to do, the good book says, don't try to pull out the splint in somebody else's eye when you got the log in your own eye. Like Jennifer says, we got to look from within and make sure that we have taken care of our business in our district alone. And then the DEC, I'm a DEC chair also, and I promise you, this now makes everybody on that committee, whether you're not on the committee, but you're an athletic director that has a student athlete participating, or you're on that committee, you've got to really go through and make sure that you thoroughly understand all the rules and regulations that a DEC has to do on a regular basis. And that's a challenge sometimes because, again, Jennifer, I know all she does up there in McKinney sometimes is just come in and just, read a book. She has nothing else to do. Not at all. Athletic directors, it's amazing. You start your day at 7 a.m. and it finishes usually at 7 a.m. the next morning because of the amount of work we have to do. And then to be a DEC chair like Jennifer and a DEC chair like I and all these other ADs across, it's even that much more responsibilities. So the big point that I took away from this is to make sure that we do our job correctly and that we truly believe that if people make integrity-based decisions, then you know what, we can move forward from this. This is not a bad thing. And I think Ray said it earlier. It's not I got you. It's just say, guys, we have an issue. Let's work on it now. Let's take care of it before the SEC has to step in and go, you know what, Coach Bass, DC Chair of 25A, we're going to send an individual down to oversee y'all's DECs. We don't want that to happen. So I think this is a great wake-up call to all of us to go, hey, it's time to make sure that we're doing things right on a daily basis with everything, not only what we do for our school district, but what we do for our DECs.
What happens if we don't?
Oh, it's simple. If we don't, first of all, shame on us. We're not doing our job. But they stated that they will send, that SEC has the authority to send an individual into your DEC to go. First of all, they can come to your high school and go, we just noticed you have 80% of your kids are from within your district, but 20% are coming outside. That's, I don't know, you figure if you got 300 people, that's 600 people in your program, which would be the size of varsity, that maybe came from outside of your district. We're not saying there's an issue there, but we're going to come in and look. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that if we're not doing our job as a DEC, they can come in and go, all right, you know what? We're going to sit you aside here a little bit, and we're going to come in and run your DEC. And just like any coach, when you're an athletic director or a head football coach, you want to do it your way, but you want to do it the right way. And you don't want anybody to come in. But if they do come in, you got to understand that there was an issue enough that got their attention, that they're not here again I got you, but they're here to assist you to make it better.
Patrick, can I add to that? I think more fundamental than that, again, this is not about gotcha. This is not about taking over of local control. I think more fundamental to answer your question is if we're not about right action, if we're not about transparency, if we're not about consistency, as Jennifer mentioned, if we're not about right action and people doing their part, it impacts competitive equity and fairness for kids. So that's what's at stake here. And so again, I think it's important that everybody acts in a transparent manner with great consistency, doing their part. We can't have one standard for everybody else and a different standard for ourselves. We need to hold ourselves to high account. when it comes to following the rules and adjudicating them. I think this also speaks to the power of collaboration. All of these rules, again, didn't come out of nowhere. They came through power of suggestion and collaboration. And then I would also end and just say that, hey, this is a beginning, and we're going to need to hear more from our organizations, from the individuals impacted to inform next steps. And so I hope that this indicates that the UIL is listening to the concerns out there and willing to take action when there's a groundswell of concern. And again, just so thankful for everybody that took some time to be on this call today.